Right, so in this talk, entering the era of Web3 Social, we're going to explore the question, what would happen if we actually own our presence in social media? An interesting thing about this panel is that it's actually, panel presentation, is that it's actually going to be on Zoom, so you can imagine it's pandemic all over again. And so I would like to invite Stani Kulechov, who's going to meet you on the other side of the screen. He's from Ava, as well as Lens Protocol project. So enjoy.
Hey everyone, how's it going in Barcelona? Really wish I was there and getting some more tan into my face as well. I've been waiting for quite long, actually, this event to happen, so I'm super excited to be here and present as well something interesting about the Web3 social. So I'm gonna share my presentation with everyone of you there, and today we kind of like will talk a bit about what led us here to grow into Web3 social. And also kind of like what kind of benefits and implications it has into the social media space, and also for us as creators and users of social media today, and also look into the Lens protocol, how it actually works and what it means for the builders, the users of the applications that are built on top of the Lens protocol. So essentially, this is an interesting statement about Web2 social media. So obviously, Web3 social media works in many ways. The internet itself works, you know. So the same way as finance works to some extent as well. So these technologies basically have brought us all together here. So that's the evolution of internet. With internet, we all can come together, like each other's stories, post content, transact and move funds across the globe. But at the same time, the way we build the internet, it definitely has some particular challenges at the moment, especially as we become more global citizens and more demanding of what actually the infrastructure could be. And in Web3 social, currently we have different kinds of ways of where we are a bit of limited in the utility. So first of all, whenever we use Web2 social, we are usually using so-called platforms. So we're going into one particular platform, and we're looking ourselves into that platform, into the algorithms, and also the interactions, the users we're interacting with, or the followers we're gaining are locked in that particular platform. So we're basically relying quite a lot on what that platform is doing, and also we're providing a lot of the value into those platforms. And that can be, for example, today, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and any social media that is built in the traditional internet sense. And of course, the user data is quite heavily decentralized at the same time, meaning that the access to that database and all that interactioning and all that information is exclusively, first of all, the right of the platform owners, and their kind of like a right of actually choose what to do with that data. Many of the platforms actually sell the data with the users knowing it in the fine print, but you can't much actually do, because all your friends are using the same social media platform, and it's very difficult to kind of like make your digital exit and vote with your feet when there's just few providers out there, and basically you have accumulated your follower base there. So for us, the evolution, how we came here and where we're going towards, definitely started with more of a Web1 social, where we had an internet where you can post content, and you know, you can read the content, you can host your own providers. Email is a good example of that, and have this connectivity. And of course, before social, we have media. You know, there's sort of publishing and centralized newspapers, and before that also the book printing rights and so forth. So kind of like media became more social, and where we're today with the Web2 social, we basically made it more easier to publish content, share that content with your peers and audience by essentially creating this level of centralization where we have servers and we're interacting with those servers and making it way more easier for us to explore content and find content. So centralization in one way has brought a lot of people together and at the same time made the internet more efficient. And the problems that we basically in the previous slide went through is something that the Web3 social is trying to solve. So Web3 and the blockchain is quite a lot about the idea of ownership. So essentially, what if actually you could have ownership on whatever value you might have or whatever things you're contributing, or actually ownership or access to anything that is available there. So where decentralized finance provides the kind of like ownership and accessibility to protocols that are decentralized and accessible to globally to anyone at the same time with the same equal opportunity. In the same way, for example, where cryptocurrencies as its own value proposition is bringing the idea of having your keys, you will have your ownership of your assets. Well, the same way in Web3 Social, we're trying to solve the idea of actually you having your keys, then you have your ownership of your content and also the accessibility and the broadcasting channel with your audience. And that's the kind of like idea where essentially we want to change the structure of how social media works today. Instead of building and empowering the companies that are running these platforms, we switch the model around where the user is the one that is in the epicenter, and all these algorithms and applications are built for the user. So the user can actually choose to change the applications that they're using or change the algorithms that are basically supporting the users to find content or curate or filter content. So it gives the freedom and portability. And that's what we are solving with the Web3 social aspect. And essentially, in the bigger picture, the Web3 social is bringing the power back to the user. So essentially, this means that all these applications are not anymore, like the user isn't anymore relying on these applications. Instead, the applications are now relying on the users, because essentially, if you're not building as an application builder, algorithm builder, you're not building something that is very beneficial to the user, someone else will build that and get that network effect. And essentially, for us, it's quite fascinating how the approach is two-folded. So as for developers, for example, Web3 Social and what Lens Protocol is doing, it's empowering developers to actually build new social media applications. So anyone, any part of the world could actually build the next very fascinating social media application, bringing a new way of interacting with the content without actually going for the process of creating this big platform effect. Building social media today is very hard from developer perspective, because essentially you will need to create an application and a network where everyone wants to join, and you have that data and you have the content and you have that flow. And recently, when we looked even a couple of years back, how Clubhouse was started and how much effort the whole Clubhouse community was striving towards populating the application with content, different kinds of topics and rooms, and all that amount of work has to go into to create a social media application or a new way of interacting with content. And when you already have that network existing somewhere, meaning that you have the accessibility to the user base, by just building something new and incredible, you can get that user base actually come to your application, and that drives innovation. And at the same time, every single new application built on the same social graph would also mean that it's a new user base and new user acquisition for the rest of the social graph, and also to those applications. So in traditional sense, when you look into the current ecosystem social media applications, they pretty much build in silos, and they're building for their own platform for those companies to thrive. Here, the model and approach is different. Everyone is building towards helping each other and enriching their networks and products, essentially. And from the creator's perspective, essentially, because you owned the relationship with your audience, it means that as a creator, you're not locked into one particular platform, and means that if you have some income deriving from a particular platform, it's not anymore relying towards that. So essentially, whatever you are doing as a creator, you always carry your followers, whichever application you choose to distribute your content for your users, and the way you monetize. And you have this interesting, fascinating area of composability as well, where since you have a open social graph, anyone can build algorithms. You can also build things on top of the applications, things that empower creators, tools, and the platform is open. We do have some extent of composability in the traditional social media when you're using APIs, but they're so limited what you can actually do in terms of terms of conditions and the endpoints as well. And the kind of like a more inclusive way to build is where you can actually open up the whole system on a smart contract level, on the data layer, and let anyone to innovate. Essentially, the Lens protocol relies quite heavily on tokenization, and Lens protocol itself is a smart contract-based protocol. So when you are creating a profile, what happens is that profile is an NFT. Essentially, you can transfer that NFT into another address, for example. You can delegate different kinds of rights, for example, if you have posting rights or any other things you want to do. And at the same time, when you follow another profile, you actually mint a follow NFT. And this means that essentially that following relationship is tokenized as an NFT. And the following follow NFTs are dynamic NFTs. So they will always reflect the latest content that you might have in the social graph. So for example, if you post a picture of a dog into the social graph, what happens is that the follow NFTs will reflect that picture of a dog. And when you post something else, let's say a picture of a cat, those follow NFTs will reflect the latest picture of a cat. And essentially what will happen here is that as a Lens protocol user, you actually have a censorship resistant distribution channel for your users and your audience. So if I go to, let's say, into a wallet or into OpenSea, I will always see the latest content by just looking at the follow NFTs. And of course, the NFT logic is also implemented into the content itself in terms of when you want to actually mint a immutable copy of the content. So let's say that I really like the picture of a cat, I want to mint it, so I can actually collect that content, and the creator can actually set also fees for collecting and different kinds of logic. For example, only maybe follow token IDs from 1 to 100 can mint it, 1 to 10, or they have to have some additional logic that they might have to have a crypto coin in their wallet to be able to mint it as well. So the protocol itself is very modularized, so you can create new modules. We'll check in a moment, but essentially additional logic how it works. And of course, besides posting, you can comment and mirror. And mirror is essentially the same way as in Twitter, where you actually are retweeting the content. So you're essentially amplifying your content, like someone else's content to your audience. And the creator can also send mirror feeds to share with whoever is amplifying that content. And it's actually just a good example on how you can actually use NFTs in something like a wide as the Lens protocol. And essentially why we created the mirror function and the idea of amplification is that the mirror function is just one example of what you can actually do to empower the curators. And curators is an area in curation where everyone is curating to some extent content. You might curate something by liking in let's say in Twitter or Instagram and or in TikTok, and that content will get amplification. But in many of these applications, even if you curate, let's say, a playlist in Spotify, you aren't actually rewarded as curators. So the idea is that we want to bring in the protocol more elevation for curators and helping to monetize the content amplification aspect as well. Because at the end of the day, everyone is a curator one way or another. Essentially, what we're looking to kind of like achieve here is first and foremost is the custody of what belongs to you actually. So you as a user are creating all the interactions and activity in social media. You're generating a lot of data, and essentially you should be able to own the accessibility to that data, but also you should be owning the relationship that you create in social media. And that's what's the idea of bringing the ownership of your social graph to you. And of course, essentially, composability is a big part of what we're doing. So essentially, when you are building a social graph on chain, it means that it creates a Web3 footprint, and Web3 footprint already exists in Web3. For example, when you are interacting with DeFi protocols like Aave or something else, you're leaving your Web3 footprint, or when you're buying a NFT, you're leaving a Web3 footprint. So you already have this footprint that is existing. With the composability, you could actually build new applications where you're using, let's say, the Lens protocol. You might use decentralized finance and combine them to build something else and empower the users. Or it might be just solely related to Web3 Social, where you are building something with the Lens protocol and let's say something like live peer regarding streaming content as well. And all of the ideas here, they basically unleash creativity. So when we decrease the barrier of actually enter to innovate as a developer, as a creator, it means that we see more innovation and we see more creativity. There is just thousands of ideas out there what you can build in terms of the Web3 Social, what you could actually decentralize, and how you can empower creators and curators and users. But those ideas never realized because there's just such a big threshold to build social media and get people excited about that. And by lowering that threshold down, essentially by creating a common social graph, brings that innovation. So ideas that maybe used to be very difficult to achieve in the mass scale might be valuable now, because maybe the future of social media isn't obtaining millions of followers as a creator. Maybe it's finding your niche and having the right way of an ability to interact the right way with your audience. And that could be a viable, actually, product market fit idea for social media. And you can create smaller pockets of different kinds of applications. In terms of like the protocol itself, it's modularized. So there's different kinds of follow modules. Pay to follow is one example. You have different kinds of commenting modules. It can be that you have to follow to comment, and also collect modules. So for example, you can collect, but you might have to pay a fee that might go to a donation or Gitcoin or whatever logic you want to set as an application builder. And essentially, we have seen a lot of interesting contributions already from the community in terms of directly into the protocol. And you could do a lot of interesting stuff. You can create more NFT gated follows. So let's say you have to have, besides following someone, you have to have, let's say, a particular NFT, or you have to have interaction with some particular DeFi protocol, or made a contribution in Gitcoin to follow a particular user, or you have to follow some other user to follow you, which is kind of interesting thing you can actually do. And then you can create even things like creator funding, where the followers will pay to follow, but then the creator will basically share the collection fees with the followers. So this is an interesting area where we've seen a lot of contributions. And of course, because the protocol lives on Polygon at the moment, you can use everything that exists on the same blockchain, or even other blockchains too, and oracles, and maybe create additional modules that have additional logic that actually uses something like decentralized finance or something else. Does carbon? You have to offset carbon to follow someone, for example. So it just shows that the protocol itself is built and meant to be very flexible, so that it fits quite widely different use cases. And if there's a use case that you have in mind that you want it to fit, we're happy to accommodate that as well and help you on that. And of course, we build an API, and the idea of the API is that getting data from the blockchain might take some time. We basically indexed all the data to get that content quickly. It's an API that helps you build Bootstrap application quite fast. And the idea is to, in the further time, to decentralize it. There can be other APIs as well being built. So it doesn't, you necessarily don't need to use the Lens API. You can use the Graph or something else. But essentially, APIs, the Lens API is an example where we could have a system of middle layers where essentially you can create a interesting content moderation algorithm and feed that through an API across multiple applications, or for example, who to follow API and offer it as a service to many of these applications that are being built on top of the Lens protocol. Now the Lens ecosystem is quite growing. I mean, obviously there's a Discord where people are having fun all the time. We had an open letter where we encouraged everyone to come and sign for the kind of like an evolution of Web3 Social. There's almost 50,000 open letter signers, which is nice to see that people care about the Web3 Social. And we launched into the mainnet roughly a month ago. There's 32, well now there's 36,000 total profiles minted, and it's relatively closed in the sense that basically it's allow list basis at the moment, but it's growing quite substantially at the moment as we allow list more communities, and essentially it becomes permissionless quite soon, that anyone can mint a profile. It's quite steady in terms of how the profiles has been growing since the launch. And of course, like if you look at the follows as well, so you can actually follow anyone and mint the follow NFT, depending of course on the logic on the Lens protocol, but there's still an allow list on the profile creation. Yeah, and of course, one recent development is that we've seen a lot of interesting actually drops on the protocol itself. So for example, recently SheFi did a drop on the Lens protocol through a Lenser, one of the interfaces, and essentially they raised some funds, and we'll go a bit further on that. But just an example what has been built on the Lens protocol. So we have a simple basically Lens Friends application where you can follow, and we are using this application to test different kinds of algorithms, and all the algorithms will be open source. Anyone can contribute their own algorithm, and we can test it in this application. So it's going to be very fascinating to see like how this open algorithmic ecosystem will grow. It's very interesting field to nerd as a data scientist. Lens there is basically the kind of like a main community build front end. It's very used at the moment. It was built in under 2 weeks in Aleph Pro Hackathon. This just showcases like how quickly you can actually build social media applications. It's quite actually fun. I use it all the time. Also, the person who built Lenser, Yogi, his brother, built basically, he goes by the name sasikos.lens on Lens protocol. So he built LensTube, just another example, like how quickly you can actually build Web3 Social. And these are very kind of like a basic applications. There's so much things to do and build further. And then we have Miguel. So he's quite active in the Web3 community. He's there in Barcelona, probably somewhere in the audience. Hey, Miguel, if you are there. But Miguel basically built almost like one application per day. So he built the Lens powered Hacker News that it was more crypto friendly. He built the Reflect as well, where you could actually post on the Lens protocol, and that will be reflected to your crypto Twitter audience as well. And there are just like examples like how quickly you can build very useful, cool applications. And there is like over 60 plus something front ends out there. So some are hackathon projects are more developed. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming up. If you're interested in building something cool, you have to reach me out and we can talk more and guide you and help you. The ideas, you can go to ideas.lens.xyz. You know, we try to kind of like encourage to build something new regarding to the built-in follower governance, letting your followers to decide things for you. Curation is a big topic. Social verification, I'm very bullish because Twitter has the blue check mark, but actually you could have social verification communities as well that are might do better work or more accurate work on that side. But also not only verifying necessarily people, but you could verify actually content, news, anything. You can verify the amount of people even in this talk. So that's interesting stuff you can build. That's about it. I'm kind of out of time. I want to thank everyone who came to the talk and of course the organizers. Super excited to see the Barcelona coming along, and I hope you all are having fun there. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach me out and talk more, or our team. And if anyone's wondering, it's a Blueberry Pie behind of me. So thank you all, and hope you all have fun there.